Hello there, welcome back. I'm that fluffy hair guy. I know we're starting earlier than the timer, but we're gonna rant about the new Fable. We're gonna go over some of the footage that we've seen coming up, and I'll discuss some of the topics that the developers have talked about, um, while comparing it to the previous games in the franchise. Because I am getting so pissed off and annoyed with the current direction of the new Fable, and seeing it over and over and over again because the release is imminent. So I keep seeing it on my feeds because I'm a Fable fan. So we're going to go ahead and get in on that. This whole first portion of the stream is just going to be me ranting about this, and then we'll get back into Fable Aeon Edition. So let's go ahead and get this started. I think I just need to do this one. We'll see when I switch the browser if I have to bring up the browser's source, but because I have the store page for Fable, the original, the store page for the new one, and then I brought up the trailers for the old games as to juxtapose what we have here. So first and foremost, the way that the developers are describing this game is a whimsical fairy tale game. Now, if you're not familiar with Fable, you'll be like, oh yeah, Fable's plenty goofy. Fable has a lot of goofiness in it. Like, that's what most people remember. It's like, yeah, but it wasn't written that way. Why did my camera freeze? My camera's been bugging me the last couple streams. Anyways, it's not written that way. Like, it's written with humor in there, but like the stories that they're telling, the main stories that they're telling are often quite dark and quite serious most of the time. Main stories of the Fable games, and I'm talking Fable 1 through 3, and even Fable the Journey, from what I've gathered from the main story, Fable the Journey was quite serious. It had its humorous undertones and interactions with NPCs, which is usually where the humor is in the Fable games. But right off the get, here, if we watch the trailer here for the new Fable, you guys can't hear that? Okay, cool. Like, this doesn't look bad so far. A little bit of red flag that it's immediately showing chickens. Oh, of course, my headphones are gonna try to die.
Fancy a date?
Chickens again. Hold up. I just want to freeze on this frame. This right here shows the biggest red flag for me for the art style. If I showed you this without any context and was like, hey, do you see they're making a Shrek game? And showed you that, would you be surprised? Because I don't think you would. I wouldn't be. That's exactly what I would think of. I'm thinking of like the old Shrek games on the Xbox that I played the shit out of growing up on Xbox, on the original Xbox and Xbox 360. I think that technically cross compatible, so I played them on both consoles. But that's kind of what it looked like. Like, this is obviously a more modern version of it, of that art style, but it's fairy tale, whimsical art style. Now, if I said that, yet we hadn't seen anything about the new Fable, and I said, hey, did you see the new, look at that, that's Fable, and you juxtaposed it to everything else before, you'd think I was crazy. If they hadn't announced it already, you'd be like, no, that doesn't look like Fable to me. That looks like Shrek. And that's kind of the biggest red flag that I have about this, is, to me, the way that they're approaching this is they're making a Shrek game painted Fable. That's what it seems like, because they're writing with humor being the main plot point. We'll get into the trailer. Like, the combat, that looks fine. The combat looks fine. The creature designs, those look kind of cool. I'm a little bit curious why they're so obsessed with chickens. Fable had plenty of chickens in it. Fable 3 had a chicken in the main cutscene, but you didn't fight them. They were just chickens. And they were kind of emphasizing the goofy shit that you can get around, but it wasn't a marketing ploy for the most part. Fable 3 had chickens in the intro cutscene, and it wasn't being used necessarily for humor. It was trying to show you the dark world with like a subtext of humor. It's showing you the dark world that they're in. Let's see here. let's bring up, we got the official trailer for Fable here. Let's just see. First off, I want to see if you guys get audio. Okay, I do have to bring up the browser. That's good that it separates it out. I wasn't sure. So, this is the original showcase in 2024.
Cute. So, you want to know all about heroes, do you? Well, you have come to the right place. Because who better to tell you all about them than perhaps the greatest hero of them all? Yeah? There he is, in all his...
So first and foremost, you'll notice, and why is Steam playing the trailer again? I hate that Steam autoplays shit. First and foremost, you may be thinking, this is just for the trailer. They're just doing this documentary style cutscene for the trailer. No, the devs came out and said that's part of the story. That's part of it. Like, they're doing that in the game. It's going to be the first AAA game to ever have a mockumentary style cutscene for good fucking reason. It doesn't belong in a Fable game. Fable's games, like the first game was told through a narrator, sure, but it didn't take you out of it because in game, when you were doing stuff, it was all played straight. Like, it's what's going on is what's going on. You're in this world. The narrations were only over specific major plot points that changed throughout the game. And in the later games, that's not even there at all. The game's never told from anything other than a first person perspective, except for the intro for Fable 3 and the intro for Fable. The intros all were told from a different perspective because you're trying to introduce the world that you're inhabiting. But the actual story, when you get into the story, once you start playing after Fable 1, you're never taken out of that first person perspective. You're always in the main story. You know, aside from a couple cutscenes where it was talking about background lore, like in Fable 2, like when it described the spire, or when it described in Fable 3 when it showed the darkness oozing over Albion or Logan's perspective. But it's also told in an organic way. That way, those are visions that you're being given of what's happening. Or for the Spire in Fable 2, Teresa's telling you about the Spire, teaching you about it, like actively, so that it all makes sense. It's not like brought you out of the game like, oh, this is just somebody watching a documentary. It's not told from a third person perspective.
I mean, sure, you get your mega fans.
You are like literally my favorite person.
You hate.
I've heard people criticize how the NPCs talk as not being natural. It's how they were in the original game, so that part doesn't bother me. They kind of literally, like in Fable 2, 3 especially, they literally talk to you like that. Fable 2, I can think of countless situations where you're going up to interact with somebody, and they're like, "Oh, I just love you," you know, and stuff like that. I just adore you.
It's like a fan club.
In fact, I actually think an NPC says you are my favorite person in Fable 2.
But we hate you.
Your chances and the occasional giant toad for some reason. But it's more than that. It's about the choices you make.
I'm a hero. I should do what I want.
We thought you could save her.
You know, it's your life and death stuff. That's what defines you, doesn't it? Really stays with you. I knew this one hero. I took her in when she had nowhere else to go. Welcome to the most exclusive club in all of Albion. Thought I'd get her out there, make the most of her gift. But you know what it's like when you're young and you have a point to prove.
The only part that I've actually liked is the character design for the classic enemies. Except for the Balverine. I don't like the Balverine design. It looks too regular werewolf. It looks too Witcher werewolf to me. But the troll, that looks fantastic. The image of the Hobbs that's on the storage page, those look fantastic.
I tell
The
you,
designs are good.
this kid, she had it all. The skill,
Like those are Hobbs. Those look
talent.
cool.
the power. She was something else, all right. She was terrifying. So, yeah, I knew this girl once who made all the wrong choices.
Humphrey. She's back.
Again, Fable 1 was told for like certain plot points, like when the frescoes showed up, the big images that laid out the plot points. Those were told from a narrator's perspective, but it wasn't told jokingly. It wasn't like a mockumentary, haha, funny moment. It was, this is what happened at this period of time. It fucking sucks for this character. You know, it didn't take you out of the world and the story that they're trying to tell by making it a joke. It was a serious story. Every Fable, the main story has always been played straight. And any humor that's brought in is from like a witty character, like for example, Reaver had plenty of naturally funny moments in Fable 2 and Fable 3. And Ben Finn in Fable 3 had plenty of naturally funny moments. It wasn't being ha just for the sake of being ha. It was that's how they were. That's how they were as people. And that's just the natural outcome of these kinds of people. Ben Flynn was like the personification of cope with humor, you know? So he didn't play things a lot too seriously, but that was part of his character. The whole story wasn't written around not playing things seriously. It was written around being serious. And then, you know, you had different characters that naturally behaved the way that they behaved. If they were goofier characters, they made quips, like Ben Finn. Reaver is immortal. He didn't give a fuck about anything other than his own pleasure. So obviously some of the things that he says is going to be hilarious. You can't possibly believe that my buttocks look like that, you know, when he kills the sculptor. Now let's juxtapose to the original Fable. Where do I got it? Fable 1. This is the original Fable, which is, by the way, if you're making a Fable game, this should be the base. This should be where you start when you look at Fable, is the first one, the first idea, because everything is built off of this. Every game in the future, save for Legends and The Journey, because, well, I mean, even then, they're still built off, or The Journey specifically. Legends was a deviation. It was a multiplayer game. It wasn't a narrative game. Let's watch the original. Horrible quality. I do apologize. If you played that video and then played the original trailer back to back with no iconography, no title, and said, is one supposed to be connected to, are they supposed to be connected? You'd say no, because they're so tonally different. Art style, it's a little too fairy tale with some of the things that I've seen, but there's also parts of it that I liked. I liked the monster designs for the troll and the Hobbs. Don't really care for the Balverines. I'll try and find that. But I don't remember what video they showed a brief glimpse of the Balverine. Also, the Balverine was way too big in that video. So there's things that I like. The pictures of Bowerstone here in this one, Like, this looks good. I like this. This looks cool. I could believe that. And like this view, this literally looks like it's from Fable 3's intro sequence, the pre-rendered cutscene. This is kind of a little bit what Bowerstone kind of, it's along the same lines. Like, you would believe those would be part of the same. They'd just be like, oh yeah, they just modernized it and made it look more real, you know? But if you just took this with the other one, no iconography, no name drop, there wouldn't be it's a complete tonal shift. I have said this a couple times now to friends. What they're doing is the exact same thing that Volition and Epic did to Saints Row. I think it's Epic that has Saints Row's license now. It's the original 2 games had plenty of goofy shit. It was mostly in what you did. Same with Fable. The goofy shit was mostly in what you did in the in-betweens of the stories that you're being told. It was mostly in the sheer freedom to just kind of fuck with the NPCs. You got the emotes, you got the chicken kicking competition, you can kick any chicken you see, you can kill anybody, you can fart in someone's face. You know, that's where the humor and the goofiness should be in, not the story. In Saints Row and Saints Row 2, the story was quite dark and quite serious. Knew when to take itself lightly at times, you know, and crack a joke here and there. But for the most part, it was serious. Same with the first 3 Fables. Fable 1, we're playing it on this channel. I've played it already on the channel. You're a kid, your village gets slaughtered, you get taken in, and then you end up fighting, you get imprisoned and tortured for a year, and then you fight the guy that slaughtered you in prison, and then fight him again a year later. Fable 2, sorry for spoiler alerts, but you're an orphan in the town with your sister. You find a magical thing. You choose to either help a criminal organization or not, which plays out in this story. And then your sister gets killed and you get trained for 10 years by Teresa. And then you get locked into a slave labor camp for 10 years where you can either help them or be bad to them, you know? So it's like, and then Fable 3 is a monarch that's slaughtering its citizens. It's literally the first choice you make. Or not the first choice. It's technically the third choice. The first major choice that has like any actual change in any of the stories further on is, do you let the protesters get slaughtered or do you let your partner get slaughtered? Which has minor changes to the further story. It literally changes one side quest where your partner will come up again. But then on top of that, there's this dark thing that's corrupting and eating the world and is coming to your land. And the industry is early industrial revolution. So you got child labor, you got mass homelessness, you've got horrible living conditions, massive amounts of pollution, and you can even worsen that, you know? So it's like, these were dark worlds telling dark-ish stories with varying levels of humor spewed without. And most of the humor deriving from the sheer freedom that you had to interact with the NPCs in the world. Now let's look at the, is this the one that I'm thinking of? This is the very first trailer I ever saw of Fable. This is the announcement trailer, the E3 2006 trailer for Fable 2. This is a year after Fable Lost Chapters came out. This was the theme. It's really quiet. Why is it so quiet? I guess it is just kind of quiet, but...
Welcome, child. Your story is waiting. The world that was has changed and grown. So will you. Choose your fortune. Will you follow the path of my mind or body, nobility, or corruption. Every choice leads to a different destiny. Choose yours.
Now that was supposed to be a Balverine, and it was very much like they picked up the design from Fable 2 and went onward, or Fable 1 and went onward, which they ended up completely nixing and redesigning completely. So I'm not going to get too much on the design there because this wasn't in game. What we've seen from Fable are close to in-game designs, right? That we're getting close to launch. So like the design choices that they're making now, I'm criticizing because that's what it's going to look like. To our knowledge, that's what they're showing the game to look like. So now let's go to the launch trailer, which the launch trailer is a bit goofier. I will give you that. It does have humor written into it, but that's not the point of it, isn't the humor. It has humor kind of pocketed around, which is how Fable is. Has humor pocketed around, but the story is serious. This one just is quiet. Turn the volume up.
Albion, a land bursting with life, beauty and light. Its people unaware of the darkness that awaits them. Now they face their greatest threat, and they need their greatest hero. You. Unless someone better comes along.
There's humor. Got it in.
A champion who will make a stand. In a world where only the brave and the reckless venture far, while the rest hide cunningly in the bushes. And only the foolish don't pack emergency underpants.
There's humor again.
Battle fiendish evil and journey into its very heart. Live by your wits or rule by sheer strength. Be feared, be worshipped, be mocked, be loved, be a legend. Who will you become? Fable 2.
Again, that also kind of leads in the overarching narrative that has come from the original trailers are that of choice, how you want to be. And there is a bit of that in the new one, but it's not black and white. They've said that they're viewing it as more shades of gray. I have mixed feelings about that because, first off, Fable is a fable, and fables have morality at the center. That is the point of them. Are morality, moral stories, basically, where you make moral decisions. In fables, there are blacks and whites. Having it be, let's see here, your choices matter, but they have said in interviews, and I've seen this on their Facebook, where it's shades of gray. There aren't any definitive, like there's no objective bad, which is really fucking stupid because if I go slaughter a town, that should be objectively bad. Or if I ramp up the rent in a town that I just bought all of the houses at, that should be objectively bad. That's not like, oh, it could be good for someone. No, that's objectively bad. There are objective bads and goods. If I bought all the houses in the town, let's go to the other side of the margin, and then I dumped the rent down to nothing, made it all free, that should be objectively good. That should be an objectively good choice because you are now allowing people to live and thrive for next to nothing, if not nothing. I think in Fable 1 or Fable 2 and 3, you can drop the rent down. I think in Fable 2, you can drop it down low. I don't think you can make it free, but I know in Fable 3, you can make it free. Maybe I have those reversed. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've done a playthrough of both of them, so I can't remember which one has which, but I know one of them you can make it free. So it's like these aren't shades of gray. in Fable, specifically in Fable. If you want to change the narrative, tell a different story, that's fine. If you're rebooting something, it's same with book adaptations, movie adaptations, TV adaptations, game adaptations, all of these things, you have to stay true to the source material that you're adapting. This is a reboot. So you have to stay true to the themes and art style, and to some degree the lore, which there's stuff that I'm going to talk about with the new Fable that's really causing a lot of red flags for me, because I know how the industry tends to be with these types of things recently, especially. But so you got to stay true to the themes and the art styles. Tell your own story. Who gives a fuck? New characters, cool. Put them in that world. That's all you got to do. Put it in that world. Stay true to the idea of what you're adapting. That's why the Witcher TV series fucked, or not fucked, fucking sucked. That's what I meant to say, was because it didn't stay true to the source material, to the point that Henry Cavill got fired or left it. I think he left it. I want to say he got fired, because I imagine he probably caused a lot of arguments. But because it strayed so far from the source material, changed the characters so much that you don't get an accurate depiction, right? So then that was the launch trailer for Fable 2. There is humor in there. There were hints of that witty British writing. That's fine. It's not the main point. It's just kind of flavoring to what's already there, right? It's not the main point of it, right? The main point was, are you going to be a piece of shit, or are you going to be an awesome person that people are going to love? That's the main point of it. And the world is fucking horrible. The towns are safe. Outside sucks. Everybody's going to die if they venture too far. That was, again, dark world. This is a dark world with a dark story with humor used to contrast that. Now here's Fable 3's launch trailer. You want to know the really fucking ironic part? Fable 3 of the original trilogy is the most goofiest. In my opinion, it also tells probably the darkest story, mostly because it's so real to what we went through in our history as a human species. So it had in my opinion, tells the darkest story. It's also the goofiest to counter that. It's got to keep that balance. It can't just be all goofy. It can't be all dark. It's got to have a balance. Its trailer is the most serious, aside from the first ones. It doesn't use humor at all, because it knows the story it's telling is that dark. You're going after a tyrant that's fucking slaughtering people, its own citizens. It's dark. It's a dark story. It uses the least amount of humor in its launch trailer. Fable 2 had humor sprinkled in. Fable 2 has probably, I would say Fable 2 is more dark than Fable 1. It's also slightly more goofy than Fable 1. Fable 1 is a lot more straight in general than Fable 2 and Fable 3. Fable 2, actually, I take that back. Fable 1 had a rougher balance between the humorous parts and the straight parts, where it's just, it is what it is. The story was all straight. You had your moments with Whisper, which were more, depending on how you viewed it, more invigorating or infuriating than they were humorous, because she kind of just talks down to you the entire time. So it depends on how you view that. I view it as more, she's just kind of a fucking bitch. but she also has to live under her brother's shadow. So not super justifiable, but slightly justifiable behavior. Um, so depending on how you view that, the story is almost completely straight. Depending on how you view interactions with like Whisper, because that's pretty much where the story deviates the most from being straight or goofy. Um, Fable 2, the story, again, pretty much keeps it down to like one or two characters that are goofy. Hammer has plenty of Winnie Banner. She says some pretty funny things to like Garth when you save him. And is kind of a snarky person after just having her father killed. So Hammer's pretty witty, but she's not like overly goofy. Again, uh, Reaver is also quite goofy, but that's just because he literally can't die, so he takes nothing seriously. So he just kind of like, but also he's not saying things in a goofy way. We hear it goofy, but he's literally going, "You think my ass looks like that? Fuck you," and then kills the guy. But the way he delivers the line, because he's this flamboyant kind of extra person, because he sees himself as invincible, he delivers it in a little bit of a funnier way, also up to the voice actor as well. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'm really bad with these things. So there we have it. We have all three Fables, or all four Fables now, all four mainline series. And the reason why it bothers me so much, and I've talked about this before, and I mentioned it in my bio, this was the first RPG that I ever played. This one right here. The original 2004 Fable. Not Fable Lost Chapters, Fable. My older brother bought it, and I played it. It was the first RPG I ever played. Before that, basically the only games that I'd really played were the Mario games, and a handful of others that were not RPGs at all on Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64. Most of which were platformers, or like I had pod racers. So this was my first RPG, and what cemented my love for this kind of game. So I waited. I'm gonna say this in a very selfish way now, because this is part of why I'm so annoyed with this. This series that has been my all-time favorite RPG hasn't had a mainline release in 16 years. I'm not counting the journey, because that was very much a side release. It continues the story, but it's not it wasn't a mainline release, because if you didn't have a Connect, you didn't play it, regardless of if you had an Xbox. All the other ones, if you had an Xbox, and two of them, if you have a PC, you can play them. I have Fable 3 on the PC. I have Fable on the PC. I have both Fables on the PC. I have Lost Chapter and Anniversary. I have both of them on the PC. Fable 2 is the only one that didn't get a PC release, but they're all playable on the Xbox, and you can still play all three of them. Why does my camera keep doing that? That's actually really annoying. I'm going to fix that later. So for me, I waited 16 years to get a game that's Shrek painted Fable. That's how I'm viewing this. That's how I'm seeing the information. That's the information that we're getting, is we're getting Fable painted, or Shrek painted Fable. And that pisses me off, because this is my favorite franchise, and to kind of be like, ooh, all you Fable fans, new Fable's coming out, but it's not going to be the games that you know. It's going to have like Easter eggs and references and like hot topics and trigger words. But now let's get into the lore, right? Again, they're rebooting it. They can tell whatever story they want, right? Whatever they want. However, I did see a video on their Facebook, I think, where they were talking about Bowerstone. It's fine. Every Fable has Bowerstone. If they want to reuse Bowerstone, fine. Capital city, main city in the Fable games. Fable 1, it wasn't referred to as the capital, but it was by far the biggest and most well built city, However, this takes place, looks like, same time period as the original Fable. We don't got guns. We don't have industrial stuff. We don't have any of that. So it takes place roughly at the same time as the original Fable. However, they have Castle Fairfax. They referred to the castle in Fable as Castle Fairfax. Now, again, this is a reboot, so they might have come up with some lore that explains to why it's called Castle Fairfax. However, based on how the games have been in the last, I don't know, 15 fucking years, you know, since, I guess, since the mid 2010s, so 10 or so years, uh, I feel like they're like, oh, you remember fucking, instead of writing some legitimate lore as to why it's called Fairfax Castle that maybe pays homage to the original, since they're borrowing that name, I feel like they just went, dude, it was called Fairfax Castle in Fable 2. That's what we're going to call it in this Fable. That's about it. Even though Fairfax Castle in the original Fable trilogy didn't get built, it was called Bowerstone Manor in Fable 1. And in Fable 2 is called Fairfax Castle, but that takes place 500 years later, well after the fall of the guild. Also, the guild is in Bowerstone. Again, I can wash that away. Fine. It's close to Bowerstone. The guild has always been close. In the original trilogy, it was always outside of Bowerstone, though. If you go by the scale of Fable 2, which the scale of Fable 2 is kind of fucking stupid, it's 120 miles outside of Bowerstone, so not even close in it, but it's in it. But also, the guild as a functional guild did not exist at the same time as the guild in the original trilogy, or as Fairfax Castle, as the Castle Fairfax. The guild never existed at the same time because the guild was overthrown a couple hundred years before. I don't remember exactly what the timeline, but I know it's a good distance off of the end of the original game, but quite a ways before Fable 2 starts. That the guild, the heroes got corrupt, the people revolted and destroyed the guild, and it lays in ruins. That's where you see it in Fable 2, where it's basically submerged under the lake that formed. So while I hope that they wrote some legitimately good lore as to why Fairfax Castle exists at the same time as the guild, which again, this is nitpicky, but I'm at the point where I'm so pissed off that I am nitpicking, you know, because they're changing so much. I'm gonna be pissed off about every change, right? Um, I'm gonna nitpick. So I hope that they wrote some legitimately good lore behind Fairfax Castle, why it's called Fairfax Castle, and why Fairfax Castle exists at the time of the guild. However, I do not think that I will believe it when I see it, because the trend has been with revitalized franchises that have been gone for ages, is that it just kind of picks some trigger words and some iconography from the original and then changes it completely. Again, Saints Row. The iconography is about all that it has related to the previous games. And the name. The tone, the gameplay. Gameplay is closer from what I've seen to Saints Row 3. So I'll give you that, sort of. Barely. But tone, gameplay, writing, completely different, even from Saints Row 3. So I will believe the good, well thought out lore when I see it for Fable. So I'm not very optimistic about that. Let's see, what else did I want to discuss? Oh, the lack of the morphing system, which it's so integral to Fable that it's literally one of the box art, not the box arts, but one of the main art pieces for the original Fable. I have the original here. This is not the original. Lost Chapters. I have my original DVD. Box art. Granted, this is a dulled down morph system. This isn't what you get in the game. I'm trying to like break it so you can see the faces. But like the appearance changes. The appearance differences between the morality is like a main point of Fable. Let's see if it's more visible on the back. Not really, because it's mostly showing only like three of these photos have the hero and two of which he's in armor. So you can't really see him. So but there is, and I'll try to find it real quick. Let me see if I can't find it. I'm gonna put this over on this screen though. Let's see. Fable 1 morph art. Let's see if I can find it. I should be able to find it pretty relatively easily. This exact image. Can I open this in a new tab? Yes, perfect. This image was one of the selling points for Fable. This image where you had your character changed visibly. Make myself bigger while ranting. Well, because I'm showing stuff on here. I am trying to show stuff. Like I only just now stopped showing things like just a little bit ago. So Fable, the original Fable, this was one of the selling points. Was this your character changed? This is the good. This is the bad. Fable 2 went even more in depth, and now you have combinations of how your character can look depending on how corrupt and how pure and how evil and how good you are. So, you know, they're changing. I will go ahead and, well, no, because I'm going to see if I can bring that up here. Okay. Right here. These are a bunch of the combinations. These aren't all of them, but there's a bunch of them. So this one's neutral. This one is all evil, all corrupt. Like, I know these so well that I can probably pick them out pretty. This is evil but pure. You start looking, you kind of look like a kind of a sexy vampire, sort of, right? This one is, I'm guessing good, but actually it just looks like good but fat. That doesn't quite look right. This one looks like you're good but corrupt, so you get like pox marks. Your teeth look bad. You had combinations. If I bring up the Wikipedia morph wiki, let's see here. If I bring up the morphing in the Wikipedia here, and we go to Fable 2, the section for Fable 2, there is a whole section that's combinations that you can get. It had a morality system. Yes, it had a good, like you could be good or you could be evil, and it flavored mainly how you looked, and how people reacted to you. That was the whole selling point. Like the box art here. This was the box art for the first game. This was the good side. You started as a kid on both, but this was the good side. This was the bad side. These are what your characters would look like. So you do have the good and the bad. I feel like Infamous built off of that because this game came out in the early 2000s. Infamous wasn't even a concept at the time. So Infamous definitely built off of that idea. Where is the morphing? Alignments. That's what I want to be under. Alignments. Right here. Combinations. Fable 2 combinations depending on different levels of morality and purity. So you had, look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different moralities, each with different looks based on how you behaved. If you were all good, you had halo, glowing white teeth, blue eyes, white skin, blonde hair. Very much playing off of like the artwork for Saint Michael the Archangel, which a lot of the Christian Judeo, Abrahamic belief flavors the appearances. If you were neutral and good, you were a philanthropist, green eyes, white hair, blonde hair, or white skin, blonde hair. Decadent, you had poxmark, you had high corrupt, high good, poxmarks, bag under the eyes, flies, yellow green teeth, slightly darker hair or skin, blonde hair. Yeah, the remake does not have this at all because they're not viewing it as objective bad, moral bad, and moral good. I have the store page here. So it says your choices matter, right? Which is fine. What they wrote here isn't necessarily the problem. What they've said in their devlogs that I've seen on Facebook from the official Fable page is that there's no objective bads. There's no objective goods. It's all shades of gray, which is total fucking bullshit. Because like I said at the very beginning of the stream, if I go in and I slaughter an entire town to drive down prices of buildings so that I can buy them at a low price and then I ramp up all the rent, that's an objective bad. Like that shouldn't be, that could be good in someone's view. That doesn't make sense for this world because you can buy properties. That's coming back. You can buy properties, you can do jobs, you can do all these things. But having a shades of gray morality system with Fable doesn't make any fucking sense, regardless of if it's a reboot. It's a reboot too, on top of it, not a remake. So there's going to be differences. That's fine. They can tell different stories, but they got to stay faithful to the original themes and the original art styles to some degree. And it's not, because like, since you're late to the stream, I'll show you this. If I showed you this image here, and I said, hey, look, they're making a Shrek game. So the world we live in and making everything shades of gray is ruining video games by removing good and bad choices. Very much, literally, they're like they said that they're trying to make it more like real life. I don't want it to be like real life. I want it to be like Fable, like I'm playing a fantasy game where there's definitive goods and bads. Yes, very much that. But if I showed you this image and they hadn't announced Fable at all, no Fable announcement, put that, ignore that they're making a new Fable. And I said, look, they're making a Shrek game. Would you question that at all? I don't think you would, unless you didn't know what Shrek was. But if I said they're making a Fable game and all you had to go off of was the previous games, and I gave you that, and that's what it's going to look like, you'd be like, no, you're not. No, they're not. That's not Fable. Someone just took a village from Shrek and said it was going to be Fable. Why does my camera keep doing that? That's actually kind of pissing me off. Anyways, so it's like they're stylistically, for me, the way that it looks like they're doing is, one, they're leaning too heavily into the humor. Fable had humor to contrast the dark stories in the world that it was in. It had humor spewed throughout in certain interactions in the writing, mostly in interactions with NPCs and the emotes and all that stuff that you could do on your free time. The main story was always dark and played quite straight, save for like maybe a couple characters that just naturally were witty, but they're written well so that it was believable to be part of their character, not funny for funny's sake. They're doing mockumentary style interviews like The Office as part of the main story. So the main story is going to be just jokes for joke's sake, which is not Fable. And then this is the art style. Like, there are certain parts in the art style that I like. There are certain things that I like. This looks good. This village, this is Bowerstone. This looks good. I would believe that this is Fable if someone showed me this, because this looks more realistic, more grounded, but it's still kind of artsy and stylized, right? It looks more artsy but grounded, which is what Fable's art style always was. It was cartoony, but it was always kind of like realistic-ish with like a lot of fantasy coloring on it, right? So like it took plenty of artistic liberties. But and like this looks great. This is okay. It's a little too whimsical fairy tale. It looks more Lord of the Rings than it does Fable, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I love the Lord of the Rings art style. I don't think it belongs in Fable. This looks all right. This is take it or leave it. It's almost a little too much whimsical and fairy tale, but this looks good. But then this looks like shit. It looks like a Shrek game. And this looks good, but this is just a forest. I could show you this image and say any game that has a forest in it that hasn't released yet, or any game recently. I could be like, have you seen this Skyrim mod? And he'd be like, yeah, I believe that. So that doesn't mean shit. This means nothing. That's good. That's fucking stupid. There should be no reason why there's a giant chicken played in a serious context in the game. Fable 3 is the only game that you fought a chicken, and it was because it was during the D&D mission where you were shrunk down to D&D to the size of a figure, and you played a D&D storyline. And one of the characters didn't want you to fight anything, was trying to make it pretty and kind of flamboyant and everything. So he stopped putting in enemies, and he like put in chickens at one point, and then they turned him into ghostly demonic chickens so he could fight something. So that's the only reason why there should, in a real context, there shouldn't be a giant flaming chicken. Also, they're leaning into chickens a lot. Chickens, lots of chickens. Fable had chickens. Yes. Woo. It was never a selling point. It was never a selling point that Fable had chickens. Dark humor? Yeah, 100%. Like, they wrote a lot. Like, there's a good bit of this that, like, the writing here of what they're describing is great, but the devlogs and what they've been saying about the game and how they view it is wrong. It's not the same theme, and it's not Fable. It's going to be Shrek painted Fable with iconography and maybe a few trigger words and throwbacks and Easter eggs for the long-term fans. But it's going to be. I've said this once already. It's literally doing what Saints Row did, where they just leaned into the humor and to try to bring in more people, and it ended up pissing off all of the old fans, and then it bombed because it was just done bad, because they were just trying to be funny, and it was being funny for funny's sake in a situation where it shouldn't be. If you want to make a comedy game, go make a comedy game. Don't call it Fable and say it's a comedy game. That's not the point of Fable. The point of Fable is you're a hero, your choices matter, the world's dark, and you can dick around a lot on the side. So I'm going to, I don't know if we'll end stream necessarily. We are going to go back up, but my headphones are yelling at me that they're going to fucking die. So I'm going to take a break for a bit. I think I've gone over basically everything I want to talk about. And if anyone else wants to talk about this during the stream or otherwise, like if they want to see me talk more about what Fable is, because I've been studying it because it's the main influence for my game. I'm not trying to like sell my game here. It is so far off from being a product that it's not even worth saying that it's my game yet, because I'm still very much like I'm making animations for the movement system still. I haven't even released that yet for bug testing. So like I'm not trying to sell my game here, but like I've been studying the shit out of Fable, and I am an expert in Fable lore, like the actual world. So I consider myself an expert because I read the lore all the time in the way. I will play it because it'll be on Game Pass day one, but I will not buy it. It might like okay, I think I've said this once, but I will say this. This game may be a fantastic fucking game. It may be so funny and combat fantastic, and the world might be great for what it is, and it might be a good game for what it is, but it won't be a good Fable game. It's going to be a good Shrek game called Fable. Like what it is might be good, but it won't be Fable. And to call it Fable is a slap to the face to the fans. So no, I will not be buying this game. I'll play it on Game Pass for like as long as I'm not bored by it. But for the most part, no, I'll play the earlier Fables. Fuck, I'll even get a Connect. I have a 360 right there on my dresser. I'll get a fucking Connect and I'll buy the Journey and play it if I really want to. If I want to stay in that world, So, yeah, no, I will not be buying this. But if you guys want to hear me talk more about Fable lore or game design and just more in-depth stuff like this, I probably won't rant about the new stuff unless they announce things new that I fucking disagree with or I might like. So I'll bring that up and like, oh, this actually sounds like a good idea, or this sounds like an ass idea I might bring up in passing. But if you guys want me to discuss more stuff like this, and instead of just making gaming content, also talk about like the backgrounds and the lore of all this stuff, let me know. Join the Discord, like, and put it up in recommendation. I think I have a recommendations channel. Let me look. Bring up my Discord. I have movie recommendations. I don't have recommendations. That's interesting. Okay. I will make a recommendation channel that everyone can get into. And if you guys want me to make more content like this, I'll fucking do it because I love talking about this stuff. I'm very passionate about Fable. Like I said, it is my favorite franchise, my favorite first RPG I ever played, my favorite RPG. Even though there are games that do things better, nothing does exactly what Fable does, and that's what I loved about it. So it is a good bit of nostalgia, but it's also just a fantastic world. Like the lore is deep. Even for the first game, what they gave us with the first game, the lore is deep. This is shockingly deep for the time. For this one RPG that came out in 2004, and then again in 2005, and then again in 2015 as a remaster. But we won't talk about that. The remaster is actually pretty good. Anniversary is pretty good, basically because it's just a slightly modified original game with better graphics. Art style is a little different, but it still kind of stays within the realm of what Fable looks like. So yeah, I think I am going to end the stream, and I'm going to charge my headphones for probably about a half hour, and then we'll start back up with Fable Aeon's Edition. When this archive goes live, it will not be called Fable Aeon Edition because we are not playing Fable Aeon Edition right now, but we will be soon. So I don't know if I'm going to go to be right back or I'm going to end. I might just end it and then start a new stream instead of, yeah, I'll relaunch. We'll relaunch in about a half hour, give or take, and we'll be playing Fable Aeon Edition. Since I'm ending it here, we'll go to the ending soon screen. Again, we will be back. I love you all. That being said, until next time.